All right, hi everybody. So as always, feel free to stop me and ask any questions. I have a fun presentation today about plant-based diets versus animal-based diets. Um, this issue I know can bring up a lot of strong opinions. So please, again, I'm really happy to discuss anything. Feel free to stop me. And if you're watching this later on, feel free to send me any questions. So let me share my screen. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I told you.
Okay.
I already. Then why aren't you on the plane yet? I'm on the plane. Both of you on there.
Okay, cool. So just a quick overview. There's pros and cons to both lifestyles if you're eating a plant-based diet or more of an animal-based diet. And there are different conditions. So certain conditions make one type of lifestyle better than the other for certain people. So it's not the same for everybody. Some people don't tolerate beans well, for example, or some people really can't take in a lot of saturated fat. So again, depending on your condition, one lifestyle might be better than the other for you. So this isn't for everybody, but this is just a general rule of thumb, this presentation. And small changes can make a big impact. So you don't need to go from one extreme to the other. It's all about just finding that balance and finding what works well for you. So a little bit of an overview about animal protein. All animal proteins are complete. I don't know if you ever heard the expression complete protein versus incomplete protein, but what that means is a complete protein has all of the essential amino acids. So there's some amino acids that your body requires to function normally, but you don't create yourself, meaning you have to get those through diet. And animal protein, one nice thing about animal protein is that when you're eating an animal protein, it's safe to say that you're getting all of the essential amino acids that you need. So you don't need to do much research to figure out which ones have which amino acids, which might be more true with the plant-based diet. Animal protein is also very bioavailable. And we've spoken about this before, this concept of bioavailability, but just a quick overview. If something is bioavailable, it means that you digest it very easily and you're able to use a large portion of those nutrients. So this is a little bit different than in plant proteins, which sometimes the availability is a little bit lower, meaning you might eat 1 cup of beans, but you're not getting all of the nutrients that those beans have. You're only getting a portion. Whereas with animal protein, they're all considered very high quality and bioavailable, meaning it's very easy for you to digest and get all of the nutrients you need from animal protein. However, an animal-based diet does have some cons to it. According to the World Health Organization, and this is something you can all look up online, they have a lot of information on their website. But according to the World Health Organization, processed meat is actually carcinogenic, meaning it can, it is associated with a higher risk of cancer. So processed meats mean that it has been transformed through processes like salting, curing, fermentation, smoking, or other processes that enhance flavor or improve preservation. So if you're getting something like a smoked salami that's pre-cut, that's an example of a processed meat, and there are unfortunately some carcinogens in that. Cooking at high temperatures or with the food in direct contact with a flame, so such as like grilling on an open flame or frying, can produce more carcinogenic chemicals than cooking on a lower heat for a longer period of time. And of different meats, they don't all carry the same risk. So red meat, and red meat again is pork, beef, and lamb. That's associated with a slightly higher risk of cancer than something like chicken. And your risk of some of these negative outcomes increases with the amount of meat that is consumed. So if you're eating meat all day, every day, your risk is going to be higher than somebody who eats meat, 2 times a week or 3 times a week. So it definitely matters how much meat you're getting. And again, not all meat is the same, so your risk is a little bit higher with that red meat. Another downside of animal protein is that unfortunately it can be a source of saturated fat, because just like we are animals, and we contain cholesterol, which is what it's in the lipid bilayer of our cells. So your cells have cholesterol in them. That's the same with animals. So animals also contain saturated fat. And unfortunately, this can raise your bad cholesterol and can increase your risk of heart disease. So again, this is more so with the meats that aren't considered the lean meats. So red meat, beef, pork, and lamb have more saturated fat than skinless chicken, fish, and obviously plant proteins, which have no saturated fat. So choosing skinless poultry and lean meat can decrease your risk of getting this saturated fat from your protein, and help bring down the risk of things like heart disease. And fish and shellfish, some people don't consider them animals. I personally do, because they are alive and they have a face. But they are a little bit different in that they don't carry these same risks, and actually they can improve your heart health. And the difference is, instead of being high in saturated fat, they're higher in something called omega-3 fatty acid, which you guys know I've spoken a lot about that through these lessons. Omega-3 is really good for you, good for your brain, good for things like inflammation and fighting chronic disease. It looks like I have a typo, but that's supposed to be anchovies, herring, mackerel, black cod, salmon, sardines, bluefin tuna, whitefish, striped bass, and cobia are all examples of animals sources that are high in that omega-3. So the fish, and in particularly the oily fish, are going to be high in omega-3. So on the other hand, we've got plant proteins. And plant proteins, so that one of the biggest difference between plant proteins and animal proteins is that animal proteins do not contain any fiber. And again, you guys know how much I love fiber. Fiber is so good at lowering your blood pressure. It stabilizes your blood sugar. It can help bind to that bad cholesterol and remove it from your body. It supports digestion, so it helps you eliminate those toxins. And fiber is what your good gut bacteria eat. So your good gut bacteria is like the basis of your whole immune system. So fiber is really helpful for building a natural immunity. The more fiber you can get, again, unless you have certain conditions that don't allow you to have a lot of fiber, like colon conditions, for the most part, fiber is really helpful. Plant proteins also do not contain cholesterol. So remember how we were saying how we contain cholesterol as humans. So animals also contain cholesterol. Plants are different. They have a different type of cell structure, and so they do not contain cholesterol. Plant proteins also contain protective antioxidants. So remember how a few sessions ago we spoke about oxidation, how oxidation is not so good. That's when your cells get damaged from things like free radicals. Antioxidant, and look, it has it in the name, antiox. So it helps prevent that oxidation process. It can help prevent cell damage. So the more antioxidants, the better. And we're going to find antioxidants mostly in plant proteins, like things like beans. And we're not really going to find that in animal proteins. many plant proteins, unfortunately, are incomplete. So that means that they do not often contain all of those essential amino acids that you need but don't produce yourself. But as long as you're getting a variety and mixing and matching your plant sources throughout the day, you're likely to be getting all of the amino acids you need. And there are a few plant proteins that are complete. Like if you've ever heard of quinoa, quinoa is an example of a complete plant protein, meaning it has all of the essential amino acids you need just from that one plant. So there's not too many of those, but there are a few. And nutritionists once thought that you would have to eat plants together in order to meet those essential amino acids. So for example, combining rice with beans. But we now know that even if you don't get the two together in one sitting, as long as you're getting a variety of plants throughout the day, you'll likely reach that adequate amount of amino acids in your diet. And here's a really interesting quote that I found. So in a Harvard Medical School study, researchers found that substituting 3% of calories from animal protein with plant protein was linked to a 12% reduced risk of dying from heart disease and a 10% reduced risk of dying from any cause during the 32-year study period. So that's pretty significant. And again, the difference is that plant proteins contain really helpful things like fiber and antioxidants, which are really protective against a lot of these chronic diseases. And animal proteins don't really contain those same protective benefits. So even though they're really bioavailable and they're efficient, so when you eat an animal protein, you're likely getting all the amino acids you need, and you're likely getting a large portion of that energy. It doesn't contain a lot of those protective benefits in the same way that plant proteins do. The problem with eating a plant-based diet, which I have to talk about, is that plant proteins or really plant-based diets, if you're following a plant-based only diet, sometimes what can happen is you might end up being deficient in some really important nutrients like B12, omega-3, iron, and vitamin D. But luckily, one thing you can do is keep tabs on these nutrients with your doctor, so you can ask for a full nutrition panel and see where your things like your B12 and iron levels are at. And you can always take supplements that will stand in place of getting these nutrients from an animal-based diet. Another thing you can do is buy things like fortified products. So if you're buying a plant-based milk, you might look to see if it's fortified with vitamin D, for example, and then you're still getting that benefit, even though it's not an animal source. Unfortunately, it can be a little bit harder to absorb nutrients sometimes with a plant-based diet, because the diet tends to be higher in something called phytic acid, which again just makes it a little bit harder to absorb nutrients. And everybody's tolerance is a little bit different. So again, one way to keep tabs on how much you're absorbing is to just get regular nutrition panels with your doctor to see what your levels are at. And again, some conditions might make this way of life a little less tolerable. Some people don't tolerate legumes well. If you're dealing with a lot of inflammation already, it might be even harder for you to absorb nutrients. So again, really, diet is so individualized. Everybody's a little bit different for how much they can tolerate and what diet is going to be the healthiest for them. But again, we don't need to go from one extreme to the other. There are ways to slightly cut your meat down without needing to totally eliminate your meat intake. So one example is to use meat as a seasoning. So a lot of the times in the US, we think of meat as this like main event. You know, we're doing the big chicken, we're doing a big protein. But another way you can think of it is kind of thinking of meat on top as like a little bit of seasoning. So you can shred up chicken and add it on top of a dish that already has a lot of beans in it. So you're still getting that chicken without overdoing it. Another thing is I think a lot of people don't totally know what a serving size is. So one way to think about a serving size is like a deck of cards. So if you're eating chicken, you want to keep it to about a size of a deck of cards, and that's going to be enough meat for you. You don't need to overdo it and have a lot more than that. That's when you can start to run into more of those risks. And again, you can replace the meat meals with veggie meals. So today is Monday. I don't know if you guys have heard the trend Meatless Mondays, but that's a great way to reduce your meat impact. It's super fun. You can pick that day to experiment with vegetarian recipes and just try it, baby steps. And again, finding new veggie recipes to make it fun and exciting is another way. So people think, maybe vegetarian diets are a little less diverse, a little more boring, but there's so many recipes out there. There's a lot of ways that you can make eating vegetables really fun and different. And then I wanted to add this part, as climate change, as people understand more and more about climate change, one other benefit of eating a plant-based diet is that it's a lot more sustainable for the environment. So the carbon emissions are going to be a lot lower. Water use is going to be a lot lower. Because if you think about it, if you're sustaining an entire large animal, like a cow, they're going to require so much more resources than something like, a head of lettuce. So, or soybeans, for example, which are really low in water use. So I love this tagline, less meat, less heat. So that's just a way of saying the less meat you eat, the less impact we're going to have as a globe with climate change. So just some cool stats down here. About 1,850 gallons of water is needed to produce a singular pound of beef, compared to only 39 gallons of water per pound of vegetables. So that's pretty significant. Water is a non-renewable resource. As water starts to become less and less available, especially for future generations, the more we can rely on a vegetarian diet, the more water we'll have to go around. And this is also crazy. So a vegetarian diet could dramatically reduce water consumption by 58% per person. So that's a lot. And yeah, reduce your carbon footprint by 8 pounds each meatless Monday you participate in. So that's also a lot, if we're all doing this together. We can really make an impact, especially when you guys have grandchildren. This is just going to become more and more relevant as the years go on. And so that's it for my presentation. I'm going to start the food demonstration, but wanted to see if anybody had any questions.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to start the food demo. I think you guys are really going to like it today. Doing fully loaded baked potatoes. So I think they're going to be really tasty. And I got the baked potatoes in the oven, but I'm going to put beans in here. And we also have some spiced broccoli that I'm going to throw in the oven for the next few minutes. Wow, I always wish you guys could smell it because it just smells so good. And then back here, I also have some corn. And this corn was frozen. It's so easy. So I'm just going to basically, I put a little water on top and I'm just going to heat it up. And we're going to add that on top of our baked potatoes. So first, I'm going to take some onions and saute them. I got my chopped onion here. And I just think there's nothing as good. Sorry, I had my little timer on. He's letting me know the baked potatoes will be ready soon. There's just nothing as tasty as baked potatoes in the winter. When all you want is that warmth Yeah, especially with all the cold weather we're getting, I just think it's so nice to have something hearty and filling, like a crispy baked potato. And we're gonna really load it up with a lot of good stuff today. I'm excited. And I'll show you guys. So I've also made for the beans, like a pre-spiced blend, a pre-blended spice bowl. And what I used in the spice blend is coriander, cumin, a little bit of crushed red pepper, not a lot, some oregano, chipotle chili, again, just a tiny bit. And I'm gonna add some garlic as well. So that's another fun way to eat plant-based dishes. Like I was saying, you know, a lot of people find plant-based eating to be a little less versatile, a little more boring sometimes. So one way to make all of your dishes different is really leaning into the spices. And just making all of those spices really different. It's a good way to get diverse flavor.
My lips up. It's sticky. My lips sticky.
The baked potatoes are looking super crispy, so I think they'll be ready in about a minute or two. So how about you guys? Do you eat more plant-based or animal-based typically?
No, I eat more animal based.
Animal-based.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it has less fat.
Right, like the leaner meats.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I eat a lot of meat too, honestly. But when I was putting together this presentation, I was like, I should start doing meatless Mondays, I think. Because it's just such an easy way. It's an easy place to start.
Mm-hmm.
What about black beans? Do you guys like black beans?
No, I don't like them.
They're pretty. I like black beans. They're pretty tasty.
I don't.
Yeah. Do you like other types of beans, Miss Dee Dee?
Yes, I like navy bean, Great Northern, pinto, and
Nice.
pinto bean. And no, did I say navy bean? Yeah, I said navy bean.
Yeah, those are also good.
Mm-hmm. But I do not like black beans, and I don't like split pea beans, but I eat them. You know,
Green
'cause
beans
they
you
good.
don't like, but you eat them?
No, I like them. I like them, but I still sometimes I eat them.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna throw these beans in. Miss Dee Dee, maybe you should cover your eyes. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm gonna add this spice blend on top. Because I honestly don't love beans either. Just like the flavor of beans in themselves. So I like them when they're really spiced up. So I find that the more spices I add to them, the more I enjoy it.
Mhm.
But if you don't like beans, that's also perfectly fine.
I love them, but I don't like some of I don't like the black bean. I don't like split pea beans.
Right.
And I don't like the what's that? The lentils.
The pinto beans.
No, I like pinto, but I don't like the lentil. I think they're lentils.
Lentils. I
Yeah.
like lentils like in a lentil soup.
They're my
Lentils, but I don't love lentils like by themselves all the time.
You don't like who?
Love lentils like by themselves all the time.
Oh yeah. I don't like them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, this is starting to smell really good, so I'm just gonna let these beans get a little warmer. But the nice thing about beans is they're just so easy to cook. Like I just took them out of the can and I rinsed them. And as long as you spice them, you know, there's not a ton of preparation that has to go into it, which I like. But okay, I'm gonna take these baked potatoes out. And I really wish you guys could smell them. These just smell so awesome. And what I did is I took some olive oil and I wiped it around the outside of the potato.
Yeah, right.
And then I took a fork and I kind of poked some holes in it. And then I sprinkled salt and pepper on the outside. So that's what's gonna give it that nice crispy outside.
Right.
And
Can you use cause I don't use salt. I don't use salt.
yeah, so I think you can use just pepper instead.
Mhm.
And another thing that I use, which I'm actually going to show you guys today, is I really like using nutritional yeast because it tastes just like cheese and it kind of gives you that salty satisfaction, but it doesn't have any salt in it, which is nice.
Okay.
And it's really good for vegetarians too because there's vitamin B12 in it. So remember how I was telling you guys, like sometimes it's tough to be a vegetarian because you can get those vitamin deficiencies. So that's one way. Yeah, that's one way you can replace that B12, which would normally come from getting more animals in your diet.
Okay.
So then I took this potato and I cut an X so that I have room to put things inside it. Yeah. See now it kind of fell open.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks so good, right? I wish you guys could smell it. Okay. Let me just clear some room here. All right, so I'm gonna scoop some beans into it as the base.
So why are they sizzling so much? They do, but they just sizzling too much. Like you know when your food was just done.
Then I think this broccoli is gonna be about done. And it's okay if the broccoli is a little crispy too. But
I love
broccoli, I have some olive oil and some some crushed red peppers. So I'm gonna add that on top. And then I have some corn. Again, this corn was in the microwave. And I just got it nice and warm in this bowl. I'm gonna put some corn on top.
Oh, you hate internet when it go out.
And then lastly, I'm gonna take some of these chives, some green onions, and sprinkle them on top. And now you've got a fully loaded baked potato. Looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That looks
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's another way to enjoy some vegetarian proteins that maybe you wouldn't have thought of.
Mhm.
And let me show you, oh, sorry, one more thing. So this is the nutritional yeast, and it tastes a lot like cheese, and it's got like kind of a salty flavor, but it only has 10 milligrams of sodium in it.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, so, and it's got B12 and yeah, 130% of your daily needs for B12. So this is a good one. And it tastes just like cheese. And if you're not eating any salt, it's a good option. So I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit on top.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it, guys.
Thank you,
Well-
Lily. We were actually talking about B12 today.
No way.
Yeah, we did mention a couple of the options, and yeast actually came up.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we'll have to try that when we send out those recipes for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lily, for the really nice food demonstration. So Miss Dee, thank you for sticking around with us. We're gonna send out a recipe for you guys. So I'll give you a call so we can get that arranged for you and Mr.
Oh.
Beard.
Okay.
Awesome. All righty. Okay,
Okay,
well,
bye.
Lily, yeah, thank you. And then we'll definitely check out your video once it's up on YouTube so we can share it with everyone else.
Okay, awesome.
All righty. Well, we'll be in touch, and Lily, I'll reach out to you about the other things we were talking about earlier today. Yeah.
Thank you.
All righty.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye, Miss Dee, Mr. Beard. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.